Today, we're hosting a 30-minute fireside chat with Steve Nouri, CEO and co-founder of Gen AI Works, and Shay Levy, CEO and co-founder of Unframe. Together, they'll discuss how to ship AI fast, secure, and to meet real business outcomes. Let's dive in.
What is actually happening in enterprise AI? What is working? What isn't working? What we're seeing people try out there? There's, let's unpack that. I think let's start there. Maybe
Yeah,
you go first. What were your initial thoughts when you thought about when you saw the MIT report, or when you saw the NASDAQ go down after that report came out?
yeah, I know. Like this is, you know, as a CEO of an AI company, your heart sinks when you see huge negativity that comes on the back of such a report from the people who do not understand it and do not go deep into this. You're like, oh my God, you just have seen the title, and now you decided that AI is not working, although you're using ChatGPT 24/7 and you cannot live without it. So that was my initial reaction. But then
Mhm.
I got a chance to go deeper and properly ingest it, because there are lots to unpack, right? And as a data scientist, I always look at things from different perspective. I would like to be, open the layers from that, and try to stay on top of the stats and facts and not get too much carried away by the conclusions.
Mhm.
So that was for me. I'm like, all right, it's talking about 95% of failures. I mean, that's a huge number. And for those who have never seen it, MIT, I think a couple of weeks ago, I mean maybe 2 weeks ago, they released their report that says 95% of AI projects fail in enterprises or something in this
Yeah,
way.
make no
Uh,
impact. I think it was around impact. Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
may make no impact, and they'll be announced sort of failures. So
Yeah.
that's essentially very interesting way of looking at it. And when I kind of thought about it, I'm like, okay, it actually is not too far from what we are seeing, right?
Right.
On the conversations that we are having with CIOs and CTOs, that was not 100% unexpected. Many of them are already telling us that they have challenges
Right.
to start a project, to get it running, to get the buying, to get the ROI, to get it in
Right.
production, to keep it in production, and to keep it going, and you know they would justify the results. So that was like my initial thoughts, but like would love to hear yours.
Yeah. So I would say the same thing. It's almost like I was waiting for this moment to happen. Yeah, because I felt companies were doing one of two things that were like really repeatable that I thought are not going to succeed. One was like plan this gigantic bombastic strategy and work like in a very like strategy to win the
Yeah.
war type of motion instead of like commando SWAT teams motion, which I very much believed in the second approach, saying, okay, what it is we want to achieve, what is our target, like very scoped, very driven to a point, rather than this gigantic plan. And I think initially for the big leadership, it was all about the bombastic plan. And when you plan something that bombastic and then you try to execute on it and AI changes beneath your feet all the time, it's just very hard to deliver real value. And you're not focused on a real use case, you're focused on a generalized term. It's not gonna work out. So I thought this is probably gonna be the first thing, the first reason that it's not gonna work out. And the second thing was the DIY. I feel a lot of companies they were right about AI enabling you to build things faster, but it does not, and so far we haven't found that in Unframe, it does not save you the time of creating something of value. That does not become shorter. Like to produce something that a full-blown solution to a use case that you brought to light, it's the same old story of taking 3 to 4 people, putting them aside for 8 months, and letting them work on it. And all those like cutting corners that companies try to do themselves as like, oh, let's just do a DIY motion and create our own platform where people can easily produce agents. It just created a lot of kind of garbage that is quite generic and isn't very accurate. No one wants to maintain it long term. It didn't work, right? And so what we took out of it as Unframe is really like we highlighted our approach even more. We said focus on the individual use case, focus on time to value for that use case. So don't necessarily work for several months. Look for how you can achieve it faster, get quick wins, and on the back of those quick wins, then evolve into a large strategy, a large play. Don't create a plan, a $50 million plan over 5 years where you didn't yet. Go ahead, go collect wins. See where you can win, see the use cases that you think, hey, AI could help do that. And you already know where AI could help because, Steve, just like you mentioned yourself, everybody uses ChatGPT themselves. So you kind of have a natural intuition when you do something that ChatGPT could help you do. You're like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. I can probably just let AI do this for me. That's the moment in time in which you should say, hey, this could be a use case and go at it. I think that was our initial thinking, like the importance of specific use cases and the importance of working like towards a production ready solution and not like a gimmick DIY.
Yeah, no, these are great. I want to just unpack some of these here, because it's super critical to start small and use the wins to actually scale. And it actually has roots in other domains as well, thinking about software engineering, thinking about, instead of waterfall approach, which I remember back in very early days, I thought like as a very junior software engineer when I was doing Foxpro, I was like, well, that's the smartest thing to do, the waterfall approach, because then you have everything ready. And then I had no idea the world is moving fast, and kind of learned that you need to start small and iterate. And again, from psychological perspective, this is an interesting as a human, it always more difficult for a person to start motivating themselves on a very complex, long lasting project, like something that will reward you in a very long term. That's just like, that doesn't work a lot well with our brain. It's
All
just
right.
made much interesting and easier to think about a process and have milestones and hit them, and then get the dopamine release from there and go through it.
Yeah, yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. And I think, unfortunately, I think some companies out there um, kind of use the fact that companies were trying to go really strategic to bind them really hard into large scale, very expensive type of programs where it's like, we'll get you on the tech AI curve and it's going to cost you just $10 million for 3 years. And the CIO on the other end is like, oh, okay, I guess AI is really important. And he just goes with it. And then it's like, once you're starting to go down that line, it's like, why the hell did I do it? Like, it's better to just start small, pick up the small wins. Don't just pour all your money on this, like, one thing and then start rolling. And you will know when it's right. You will know, like, we're very much trying to do it in Unframe. We're saying, like, let's focus on the one use case. Let's, let us make you feel comfortable working with us, getting value, getting a use case that actually works for you, and let's evolve from there. We never come in and we say, well, you want to work with Unframe, let us create a 5-year plan, pay us this much upfront, and we'll revolutionize your org. It almost feels like a scam. Not that those companies are trying, but it's, ugh, my general suggestion is really to go at it that way. And I think everything else in history ever worked like that. You always started with smaller wins, on top of which you build bigger wins, on top of which and then you had the smaller blocks, building a bigger, 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 and then eventually you build really, really impressive things. But you couldn't start by planning this insane Colosseum. You start by planning smaller stuff. So that's kind of
Totally.
how I think things went.
Yeah, and you mentioned about POCs failing. Like there's like a POC graveyard in many of these enterprises, right? And it's just like the what are your thoughts about some of the reasons? I mean, I mean, I can just put my thoughts like very quickly here, and some of the obvious one that I'm seeing is like they sometimes overestimate the
For
impact
sure.
of AI and what AI can deliver. You know, in many cases we know that like the software engineers that are leveraging it, they get huge amount of value and productivity gain, but they know that where it works and where it does not, and they would not just think about it as a sort of a silver bullet. But yeah, I would love to hear your thought.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a great point. It's actually bringing me up an anecdote where I told my dad, and he's like, obviously not the AI first generation. When I told him, look, you can ask ChatGPT anything and it'll give you an answer, and the first thing he told me to ask is there a God? And I'm like, Dad, it won't give you an answer to that's a difficult like that's you won't get that answer from ChatGPT, unfortunately. We're not there yet. But that's kind of the funny thing, right? Well, if it can answer anything, it will probably do that, right? Um, so it's kind of like that. I feel a lot of companies were like, well, AI can do this, right? And I think what you realize when you're working on real use cases is that it's not that straightforward. It's you're gonna start the naive approach, whatever your use case might be, whether it's working on contracts or spreadsheets or whatever. Consuming emails, doing some crazy automation, whatever. It's gonna you're gonna start with a naive approach and it's gonna work all right. You're gonna have like 50% there, something like that. If you're gonna stop there at the 50%, you did not produce something of value. Because if it's wrong half the time, no one wants to use it. No one. It's not like you're gonna have 50% adoption, you're gonna have zero. And that getting it up is tricky. You have to think about the process. You have to say, well, maybe we'll do it that way. We'll incorporate another loop. We'll send it to this person to validate. Well, you're starting to create a process around it, which makes sense in terms of the output that you expect, having it deterministic, and involving as little manual work as possible. Probably it does involve somewhere in the chain. And that's not it's not the sexiest part of it. It's not the, oh, it took me 2 minutes. That's exactly the part where you say, okay, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. I'm focusing on it. What is the outcome that I want? How is the right way to do it? And then all those quick ones that were just done on, back of the envelope type of thing, that's not my main focus. I have 10 other things I want to do, but on the side, I'm going to produce this and this is going to work amazing. All those became the graveyard, in my opinion. All those where the smart questions weren't asked initially, where you didn't really think, what do you want to achieve out of this? Is it saving anyone's time? Is it just cool for the sake of being cool? Is it just you calling it transformative, but it's not really making it's like those. It's the usual pitfalls of like, there's a shiny new thing and let's go at it. But I'd love to hear what you think, because you said you have some ideas.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like when you go to these conferences, there's always good chat to be have around after parties and events with some of the tech leaders, and one of some of the points that we are hearing in these conversations and directly from the users, it's just essentially I think as you mentioned, one of them is like it's not actually specific to a task. They just go very generic. They want to build a huge platform that take care of a lot of stuff rather than a specific pin problem that they want to solve, and it will add to the company ROI, something that is measurable, something that is aligned. They don't think about it too much. They just start it and like, okay, we will think about it as we go through it. Versus that, where does data come from? Where does the is it going to be contextually sort of aligned with what we have, or we're going to have a generic, chat GPT API just stuck on the back end? Are we going to, make it as a part of our sort of dev stack and use the current infrastructure, or we need to build something from scratch. Are we going to build it ourselves, or we're going to just buy it and quickly run it based on something that works? These are all change the scope, change of the investments, the complexity. A lot of times they just fail on the way towards being ready. Like they can't afford to actually keep it running, or they can't find the right team to make it scaled. The DevOps, MLOps is complex. A lot of times they just hear that OpenAI and other companies are throwing millions of dollars and billions of dollars, and they think that's the scope. Like you have to just throw money at it.
Right.
And that's
Right.
like that's a mindset of like you throw the money and it works somehow
Right.
magically. Ilya came up with the idea of scaling works with models, and they just made it work. We should just do the same.
The same. Exactly. Exactly. I agree with that. And I also think, yeah, no, 100% agree. And I also think, as a company, unless it's in your kind of core business, it's probably not a use case you want to develop yourself. Because how annoying it is, even for employees in a certain company. Imagine you're a software engineer or product or whatever in a certain company that their core business is, I don't know, insurance, banking, pharma, whatever it might be, and then someone comes from the side and tells you, well, I want you to create me a Jira ticket optimization flow with AI. You're like, what do you want from me? Like, I want to deal with our core business, right? This is why I came to work where I came to work. And then even if you do it, if it's outside of the core business, you're going to abandon it over time. So no one is going to maintain it long term. It's going to be produced in a kind of half-assed type of way, which is the reason I think in the MIT report they highlighted that buying from outside or using external vendors was much more successful than being internally. And I think the reason for that is exactly that. When you work with an outside vendor, that is, let's say their core business is doing AI automations, then you're going to have more success than trying to build the AI automations yourself, unless they are in your core business. Like if you're in banking and you want an AI flow for, I don't know, approving loans, I can see why you build this yourself. I can see why you're devoting the time, you're devoting the effort. It's your core business. Like things about it, you want to coach teams about it. But if it's something for IT ops, I wouldn't recommend you to go ahead and build it. Like, what you want to maintain? Just like, banks in the past did not build their own Jira. They bought Jira. They didn't build their own Salesforce. They bought Salesforce because it's not their core business. So that's kind of how I think about that. And and on this side, you also, and this kind of reflects to what I said before, you want to kind of be engaging with companies that are not bombastic, something that will solve you in a very like focused way, not something that is 5-year plan, $10 million. There's a lot of that as well. So obviously I'm not super objective here, but that's kind of what we kind of try to aspire to in Unframe. And so we were really happy internally when this report came out saying, okay, it's probably highlighting the things we thought. Um, so yeah, so that was our take. What do you think in terms of measuring ROI, Steve? What have you seen in terms of companies trying to do? Have you heard stuff about it? I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
This is a very important one, and that that goes back to what are the problems that you want to tackle, and how those problems are going to help you to actually um, excel as a company, right? Um, Essentially, this is one of the major issues with AI in production specifically. It is sometimes being seen as a vanity metric, that you just have a little bit of AI somewhere plugged in, that you can announce it, you can talk to your shareholders about it, you can do some PR release, and that would essentially help you to get certain visibility across the board, and maybe some credibility if people do not dig deeper that how it is being used. In many cases, they do not follow how this particular tool that they're spending to build or how it is helping them to automate is affecting down the chain the product that is being released. Is it making it cheaper? Are they having less human involved? Are they doing it faster? Is it going to make it more innovative? Like, what does it do for you? So I think it's one of the things that I would highly suggest any CIO that wants to think about AI very upfront, think about measuring the impact down the line. And a couple of the sort of use cases that I have seen was most importantly, like, let's say in marketing, it was an easy thing to measure. They had less content writers, less graphic designers. They were generating higher quality graphics. So the same people were able to use Midjourney or whatever. I'm not going to name a lot of names, but essentially using the tools out there to generate higher quality content faster. And just imagine that editing the little things would have taken them longer. So they're saving on multiple front, the quality, the timing, the expenses. And so these are things that are measurable. And
Right.
that's just very, very helpful, right? You can see that these are the industries that are actually very successful. They're
Right.
getting the value out of AI.
Right. Right. I think the exactly. I think they also touched on it in the report, which was nice to see. It's like exactly, it's where when you can pinpoint to this is what I got out of it. It wasn't just, oh, I created it. There's many things that's just like, and I created this, and I created this, and I created this. Okay, and like, right, that's the immediate question. You don't want to come in and just hear, and we built this, and we built this, and we built this, and then we built this. It's like, why what am I even listening to here, right? And so you want to hear when someone tells you what they're doing in AI, you want to hear, we did that, therefore you want to hear like consequences. You want to understand what was the end result out of what they are doing with AI or what they're trying with AI. And this is something, again, with Unframe that we're trying to do very early on, is to ask, what is it that you hope to achieve? And trying to aspire to the final outcome, to the point in which we tell customers, unless you're happy with the outcome, we don't move to licensing, right? What is the reason we do that? Because we're trying to, which I kind of like, we're trying to align the interest of the customer to our interests. Because if we failed for some reason, we built something that should have never existed, we still don't want it to be purely on the customer's side. Not just because they brought it to light, they should be, because they'll end it and say, you know what, that's actually, what did we do it for? That doesn't provide value. We don't want them to have sunken costs. Like, this is our approach in Unframe, to become like really valuable partner and not just the
Very
cost
smart.
center of AI. And so that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to do. Because initially we thought, we'll make up ROIs and we'll show we hit them, yada, yada, yada. But eventually we settled on, the customer will have to say, I'm happy with the outcome, I want to keep it longer, and that will be the simplest test. So don't hold them to a certain, like, it needs to have that, it needs to have this. It's just like, do you feel the impact? If they say yes, then we license.
I'm just like going to jump in here. What would be like, maybe without naming the name, what is the one of the examples of a client that was sort of surprising in terms of either for yourself as a sort of delivering that much value that you wouldn't expected, or for the client was surprising that that particular automation delivered huge amount of value. They were not expecting that.
You mean like a reference case that Unframe actually?
Yeah, I mean, without naming the name,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
just yeah.
yeah. I think there were areas where we did things around IT operations, and you felt like how much easier and faster was for the IT team on the other end to now handle incidents, or to handle even Jira tickets, as understanding what they're correlating to, and kind of it made the whole thing just a lot more streamlined. You could feel it in the meantime to resolve. You can feel it. You can feel it across the board, really, for every team that has used the Unframe solution on that. There were solutions we did on unstructured data. That's actually very common. Unstructured data is one of the most common use cases that come up. So you think about spreadsheets, financial statements, contracts, things like that. If the original source of truth were documents, it was so difficult to get an answer. Every time you wanted to do some analysis, you had to open so many files and look at them and go, what am I looking at here? And copy them over into an Excel. And suddenly imagine you had AI kind of digest all this unstructured data into something very usable that you can now just communicate to. That was a huge, huge, huge difference. Every use case we do around unstructured data usually moves on to licensing in a very fast, seamless way, because it's almost like before it was not digital and now it's digital. It's like pre-internet, post-internet. It's like that. So those are really areas where we feel a lot of impact. A lot of the use cases are actually not the most shiniest things. There are back office stuff. They're not necessarily the customer facing voice AI agents to pick up the phone instead of it's not those. It's actually the back office things. It's areas where they had analysts doing things. It's areas where the time to answer was impactful. So you get an RFP, how fast you respond to it. You get a security questionnaire, how fast you respond to it. Were smart automations around pricing, around like a lot of things like that. Not necessarily the most trivial areas that everyone ran into, which was like, okay, it should be in call centers and it should pick up the phone instead of a human. Actually, I found that to be pretty annoying. As someone personally that called such a call center, it was super frustrating. Like, I just really wanted to get to a human. It was very clear that it's not a human. I don't know why, but it was just very clear to me from the start. And I was like trying to answer as little as possible questions just to get to a human. I managed, but it was, there's certain like bad side to it as well, I guess.
That's a great point. I mean, it's actually super underrated that a lot of people are just focusing on shiny things, the front office. They want to, you know, uh, change the big part of the engine. They want to do something that is towards the client, and they feel that that would be actually the most important the problem to be solved by AI, versus that what we are hearing, and which is very, very aligned with what you just said, the boring one, the ones that are actually in the back office and the ones that are not as cool to talk about, is actually the one that would deliver the highest value. And there are many, many sort of similar cases. Whenever I go to an event or conference and somebody asks me, all right, where should we look in terms of starting a new idea or coming up with a
Sometimes
new
it's areas they already
startup?
had before, right? Sometimes it's
Yeah.
already use cases that they had before. It's not like LLM. Those are sometimes use cases they had before
Hmm.
LLMs. Like they had them from 2021. It's just now they can do them even 10 times better. Because if in the past you need the ML model and something complicated, suddenly it's super trivial. So now they're addressing those. So sometimes they don't even have to come up with new ideas. You just tell them, well, look internally. You probably already know them, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. That's right. I mean, the easiest ones that, as you said, have been working in the past, but it was a more complicated process of NLP, and doing a lot of uh, preparation, and doing going through the steps to make the data ready to be ingested, and then Like I remember back in days using Spacey and sort of NLTK to do a lot of that kind of pre-processing, which was not fun, to be honest. At some point, I actually learned a lot of little tricks that is sort of obsolete by having LLMs. But now the good news is that all those can be replaced very easily with something that is super fast and very reliable, especially which is it's a language based. Just going through the documents makes a lot of sense. Just reading
Right.
those documents, making summaries. These are like people are using it daily. They, I mean, that should be like one of the pointers, as you mentioned, that like since you are doing it daily, you are using it for summarization, getting gist of any sort of a video, image, or a big document. This is something you need to tackle first.
Yeah, yeah. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I think it's pretty cool. The last thing I think it's interesting to notice how fast we got accustomed to the fact that we can now just speak to, software and it understanding us. If you take us pre-LLM, try thinking of a software that could understand a sentence that you're saying was already pretty impressive, right? Before LLMs, if I take us back, it was like, wow, I can't believe it was able to understand me. And now it's like, what do you mean? Of course LLM should, of course AI should be able to understand this very bizarre section that I'm now sending it. I think it's pretty cool to see how adaptable the we are almost as people and as industry and as software. Is It's like as LLM comes out a month later it becomes, well, pretty standard, and before that it was something completely imaginary. And I feel with AI advancements it keeps feeling that way. So now it's, of course it's able to reason and do thinking by itself before it gives me the answer. And oh, of course it can prove some mathematical proofs. And of course, and I wonder like how far it will go, this of course, of course, of course, until at a certain point in time it's gonna be much smarter, I think, than people. So pretty cool to see. I think it's pretty cool to
I'm
see.
looking forward to that. And you just mentioned about one of your sort of experiences talking to that, call centers. I would imagine in maybe next couple of months, maybe 6 months or 12 months, you would rather to switch to the
Yeah,
AI
yeah,
chatbot
give me the
because
AI. Yeah.
yes, it's just like, can you just you
Yeah,
know
can you please
connect
bring?
me to the AI? I don't want to talk to you because like people, they're real human beings. They might,
Yeah,
got stuck in the traffic and be a little bit not very
yeah,
kind in the conversation versus that AI is 100% the same consistent,
right.
uh, maybe
Doesn't hang
looks
up on you. Yeah.
yeah, looks very, very fun to talk with, and people get used to it. Honestly, I would imagine that people would start getting used to, talking and getting that interaction going, and that's why a lot of people feel that AI has feelings because it looks empathetic.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I think we can wrap at that. I think we went a bit over even. So yeah, it was an interesting discussion.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Shai. I would
Sure.
just one last sentence to CIOs, CDOs: just pick narrow, high impact use case and embed real context to deliver value.
Exactly. And the best way, by the way, and if allow me to add on top of that, a really good way to adopt AI, obviously not being very objective, is Unframe, which really helps to do that. I have to say that. And yeah, that's about it.
That's great. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.